voice twisted up in the top of halfway, riding with my surfboard.
Lip syncing is a standard practice among many of the most popular singers today. Though even the strongest vocalists rely on lip syncing sometimes, the act is often looked down upon. While it's completely valid in cases where an artist is straight up lying about their vocals or the nature of their performance, lip syncing in general is far more nuanced than just the negative instances that come to mind. In this video, I want to take a deep dive into what exactly lip syncing is, the multiple ways that artists use it, and some of the scandals that have come from it. Let's get into it. Lip syncing most often refers to an artist miming to a recording of their own vocals. Lip syncing isn't always a bad thing, though we tend to associate it with certain scandals or automatically think that any artist who lip syncs can't sing. In some contexts, lip syncing refers to a person miming another person's vocals, usually as part of a performance. In these cases, though, there's usually the understanding that the performer is not singing, nor are they making any sort of statement about their singing ability. In these cases, it's usually done in tribute to the original artist or for film or television. Lip syncing became popular for recording artists in the 1950s when TV shows like American Bandstand began to show artist performances on TV. Though these performances weren't always happening on live television, they were often performed in front of live audiences. In order to prevent errors and keep the show running smoothly, artists lip synced to their songs. They mouthed the words while a recording of the song played and otherwise gave every impression that they were actually singing. In addition, bands often mimed any instruments that they played. The emergence of MTV in the 1980s inadvertently made lip syncing more popular. The boom in music videos further shifted the focus from an artist's vocals to their entire persona as an entertainer. Music videos became more elaborate, whether that meant becoming more film-like or more choreography intensive. Lip syncing was and still is standard practice at the time for music videos. In almost all music videos, artists lip sync to the studio version of their song. The focus of music videos is typically the visuals, as most fans have already heard the song and are just watching the video as a creative supplement. In addition, when using a video for promotion, it makes sense to use the studio version since it doesn't have any mistakes in it. It also makes more sense to use a studio version for consistency during filming. This focus on visuals crossed over into artists' live performances. Since artists focus heavily on the visual experience of their performances, vocals were often lip-synced to accommodate for things like loud pyrotechnics or demanding choreography. Also, lip-syncing lessens potential mishaps during live performances, especially televised ones, as singing off-key or missing a note is taken out of the equation. In the 1980s, megastars like Paula Abdul, Madonna, and both Janet and Michael Jackson lip-synced in multiple performances due to the intense choreography and stage movements in their shows. Artists actually lip-sync for several reasons. Often when a song is vocally demanding or challenging, an artist will lip-sync certain performances in order to prevent vocal strain. This is especially common when songs have multiple high or low notes or just a really difficult one to hit. Doing so constantly could potentially strain or damage the artist's voice, so they tend to be selective with their live performances. The other alternative is to either risk missing the notes and delivering a shaky performance, or singing the song live and just dodging the note entirely. To be clear, by note dodging, I'm not talking about an artist including a note in a song and lip syncing it every single time because they can't even hit the note on a good day. I'm talking about artists who can hit those notes and have demonstrated that, but don't sing the note all the time live in order to save their voice or for other reasons. For example, in her live performances of Let's Get Loud, Jennifer Lopez either always lip syncs the high note or misses it when she's singing live. In live performances of her song Praying, Kesha often does her performances live, but she dodged the high note at the end of the song. She has, however, proved multiple times that she can hit that note, so it's likely that she just dodges it in order to prevent vocal strain. I think it's a personal preference what fans prefer. Some would prefer the lip sync version of the song with perfect vocals and notes, while others are fine with the more toned down version of the song or a more emotional and perfect one as long as it's performed live. Not all venues are conducive to an artist singing live. Artists often lip sync when the venue will make it hard for fans to hear them, either because of size or because the acoustics aren't good. A lot of artists lip sync at outdoor events either when the crowd is too big or because of extreme weather like severe wind or cold. In fact, artists often pre-record at least part of their SuperBowl performances, not only because they're often moving around the stage a lot, but it's also usually very cold out. In addition, because millions of people are watching the SuperBowl live, producers have said that artists are requested to pre-record their vocals and lip sync. Very few artists actually sing live at the SuperBowl. This includes both the artists singing the national anthem as well as halftime performers. Artists are also forced to lip sync when proper sound systems are unavailable. Often television performances don't provide the proper acoustics, and some studios aren't equipped for a performance for an artist and an entire band. For example, artists lip sync at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade because the floats aren't equipped to support live performances, and it's also usually very cold out. Time is also a factor in an artist's lip syncing performance. It takes a while to set up sound systems as well as any necessary instruments and to do sound checks. It's just quicker to have an artist lip sync and have any existing band members simply pretend to play their instruments. This is especially common on television shows where performances are confined to specific segments or time slots. Award shows like the Grammys and AMAs are often on such a tight schedule that artists are required to lip sync. Almost all artists who do deliver some live vocals at award shows are singing over a pre-recorded track. In the lip syncing conversation, it's important to distinguish between lip syncing entirely and between singing over pre-recorded vocals. Lip syncing is when the artist is 100% miming their vocals and they either make no sound at all or their microphone is turned off. Artists can lip sync to the studio versions of their songs, but they often use a pre-recorded live version to make it more believable. Artists usually don't lip sync their entire performances, but just parts of it. One form of this intermittent lip syncing I mentioned earlier is singing with a pre-recorded track. These pre-recorded tracks usually have lead vocals all throughout the song and sound like the artist is singing the song the entire way through. Sometimes artists sing directly over this pre-recording and only pause at moments to catch their breath or avoid certain notes. Pre-recorded backup vocals, however, are intended to simply be a support for the artist. The backup vocals usually only contain part of the song, usually just the chorus. The gray area is often found in either the volume of the pre-recorded vocals or how much an artist relies on them during their performance. After all, if an artist's pre-recorded track is so loud that you can't even hear their live vocals, they might as well be lip syncing. If 80% of an artist's performance is pre-recorded or made up of backup vocals and they only sing every third word, that's pretty close to lip syncing too. In 2013, Beyonce brought on an unintended wave of controversy after she sang the national anthem at Barack Obama's second inauguration. She delivered a near-perfect performance despite the cold weather, which led many to believe that it wasn't live. Beyonce was accused of lip syncing, and internet sleuths went to work investigating just how well her vocals and her mouth movements matched. Beyonce later admitted to pre-recording her vocals and lip syncing to them at the inauguration. She said, "I'm a perfectionist, and one thing about me is that I practice until my feet bleed, and I did not have time to rehearse with the orchestra. It was a live television show and a very, very important and emotional show for me, and one of my proudest moments." Beyonce explained that her decision was as a result of not being able to do a sound check, as well as the weather and several other delays.
Due to the weather, due to the delay, due to no proper sound check, I did not feel comfortable taking a risk. It was about the president and the inauguration, and I wanted to make him and my country proud. So I decided to sing along with my pre-recorded track, which is very common in the music industry, and I'm very proud of my performance.
She then confirmed that she would be singing live at that year's Super Bowl. I never saw this as a big deal or much of a conversation because it's so obvious that Beyonce could nail the song live, which her pre-recorded vocals already proved. Her decision to lip sync wasn't made because she can't sing, but just to make sure that the performance was as good as possible and it didn't detract from the inauguration. There are multiple performances where backup vocals and pre-recorded tracks are used perfectly, and you can hear the artist singing live over them. A recent example that comes to mind is Blackpink's Pink Venom performance at the VMAs. You can hear the pre-recording throughout the entire song, but it's still plain as day that Blackpink is singing live too, and they sound great. You can hear their breaths and their ad-libs, and I always feel like that adds some little extra character to live performances. Actually, I think the VMAs are usually great for this in general. I'm also thinking about the Bang Bang performance in 2014. The studio version plays throughout the performance, but it's much quieter than Ariana and Jessie while they're singing and Nicki while she's rapping. It helps round out and add depth to the performance, but it's still clearly a live performance. It's also evident that Nicki isn't even trying to act like there's no recording. Instead of mouthing the words to the song when she's catching her breath, she just closes her mouth, which she does in a lot of her live performances. I do feel like pre-recorded vocals are now used by fans as a scapegoat whenever their faves are called out for lip syncing. Instead of acknowledging the lip syncing, they always blame it on the backtrack or poor audio mixing. I feel like that's because a lot of fans take someone pointing out lip syncing as an accusation of some sort, or like someone is questioning their fave's talent. I see this a lot as a K-pop fan. A group will clearly be lip syncing and a person will acknowledge it, and then stans will be like, they're not lip syncing, the backtrack is too loud. And it'll be a video of Winter with her mouth entirely closed while she's supposed to be belting a high note or something. Over the years, it does seem like lip syncing has become the new norm in K-pop. It's so prevalent, in fact, that big companies like SM Entertainment are constantly accused of never letting their groups sing live. It seems like the groups that are usually at the center of that specific conversation are the girl groups Aespa and Red Velvet. The irony isn't lost on many, though, that SM Entertainment is renowned for its vocalists, yet very few of their idols are allowed to sing live and show off their talents. The most obvious reason for the increase in lip syncing in K-pop in general is the intense choreography. As choreography becomes more elaborate, it becomes less likely an idol could deliver solid live performance without either sacrificing on the vocals or the choreography. The usual compromise is that for the artists to deliver the choreography to their strongest, the idols will just lip sync. The K-pop industry is also obsessed with perfection. Idols are pressured to deliver flawless performances absent of any natural human errors and look, sound, and dance perfectly at all times while on stage. An artist's body movements can't be made perfect in the live performance, but their vocals can be. It also seems like entertainment companies are now looking for dancers and visuals over vocalists, which also results in an idol lip syncing more if they could barely sing to begin with. Another reason that idols lip sync is that, simply put, K-pop stans are one of the most judgmental groups of people on earth. Though they give idols hate for lip syncing, they also give idols more hate whenever they sing live and deliver a performance that's not perfect. Idols are called lazy for lip syncing, but then also called lazy for allegedly not practicing enough just because they don't sing every performance perfectly when they're live. It makes sense that if idols are going to be criticized either way, to be criticized for a performance that's less technically flawed preserves the idol's voice and takes less effort. I've seen fans continuously say that certain idols can't sing just because their company makes them lip sync, even when there's multiple clips out there proving that they can sing live just fine. It's important to remember that often, the conversation about whether or why an artist is lip syncing is a separate conversation from their vocal talent. Not always, but often. In an interview, Stray Kids' Bang Chan said that idols lip sync because even on days when they perform, they may have several interviews and speaking engagements to attend beforehand. So by the time they perform, idols' voices are often too hoarse or worn out to sing their best. He also confirmed that while some performances do rely on only recorded backup vocals, others are fully lip synced to a pre-recording of the song. Idols' promotional schedules often consist of a couple weeks of non-stop interviews, variety show appearances, conferences, and back-to-back performances. This breakneck schedule of promotion of course leaves them little time to rest their voices and little time to spend doing sound checks between appearances. For their music show performances, idols typically rely on a mixture of their own vocals and a backing track. Main vocalists typically use less backing vocals or perform with them at a much lower volume than members who aren't vocalists. The prevalence of lip syncing is a point of contention in K-pop fandoms. While some fans don't mind as long as it makes for flawless and entertaining performances, others argue that companies and fans have become too reliant on choreography, visuals, and set pieces to take the place of actual musical talent. Some fans say that they don't mind televised or award show performances being lip synced, but concerts should be live. I can't speak for what every group does, but I did see Twice earlier this year, and the only person it was super easy to tell was singing live was Jihyo and sometimes Nayeon. All the girls were singing, but their vocal tracks were definitely higher. The show was obviously still great, but it was jarring to go from hearing one girl singing basically all live, and then the next person is singing what sounds more or less like the studio version of the song. The girls also dance for basically the entire show, which obviously makes it more difficult to actually sing live and to sing well. During their slower songs though, and their trio songs, you can hear their live vocals a lot better. And though it's completely valid to be irritated by a concert not being completely live, it's fair to acknowledge that artists have to preserve their voices for an entire tour, and idols move non-stop during their concerts. Though I understand why idols do lip sync, I have to agree with people who say that idols' stage presence tends to be a little bit better when they're singing live. It just seems like they're able to let loose and have more fun, and their performances are a lot less wooden because they don't have to mime the lyrics perfectly. I've especially noticed this when idols have performed live at Coachella and some award shows. A lip-syncing scandal can end an artist's career or at the very least shroud them in controversy for a while. Probably the most known example of this is Millie Vanilli and their lip-syncing scandal back in the 90s. Millie Vanilli was a German-French pop duo made up of Fabrice Morvan and Rob Pilatus. When Milli Vanilli recorded their debut album, their producer Frank Farian wasn't satisfied with their singing. 3 other singers were hired to record the album and were paid off to keep it secret. Milli Vanilli were promised by Farian that no one would find out that they weren't really singing. In the American versions of their debut album, Millie Vanilli were credited as the vocalists, whereas the actual singers were omitted. Millie Vanilli was paid their advance money and began to promote their debut album, Girl You Know It's True. The 1989 album went multi-platinum, selling over 14 million copies, producing 3 #1 songs, and 5 top 5 hits. On the outside, it seemed like the duo was on top of the world, but Millie Vanilli's career would end almost as quickly as it began. During interviews, it became evident that the two weren't strong English speakers and had very strong accents, despite singing clearly in English in their songs. In 1989, Millie Vanilli performed their song Girl You Know It's True for MTV. During their performance, a hard drive issue caused the recording track to skip and keep repeating one part of the song over and over. Once it became clear that the pair was lip-syncing, they fled the stage. Member Rob Pilatus said that he knew at that moment it was the beginning of the end for Millie Vanilli.
It stopped. Girl, you know it's girl, you know it's girl. 80,000 people. Girl, you know it's girl, you know. You know, I couldn't repeat it 15 times. Girl, it got obvious. So I stopped, I panicked, I ran off stage.
At the urging of VJ Downtown Julie Brown, the duo was convinced to get back on stage and finish the performance as if nothing had happened. At this point in time, it only seemed like they'd been caught lip-syncing to their own vocals, which, though embarrassing, wasn't as bad as an offense as to what was truly happening. Millie Vanilli won the Best New Artist Grammy in February of 1990. The two continued to perform and make appearances throughout the year, and their scandal provided subject matter for tabloids, news, and comedians alike. Ironically, in an interview that year, Rob Pilatus said that he had more talent than Bob Dylan, Mick Jagger, and Paul McCartney. Charles Shaw, one of the actual singers on the album, tried to speak out and inform the public that Millie Vanilli were imposters, and he and some others had actually sang on their album. Farian then paid him $150,000 in hush money. However, Millie Vanilli would soon be found out. In November of 1990, Frank Farian fired Millie Vanilli and revealed himself that they hadn't sung on any of their records. The controversy was published in the LA Times, and the news made global headlines. In a statement, Rob Pilatus said, "I feel like a mosquito being squeezed. The last 2 years of our lives have been a total nightmare. We've had to lie to everybody. We are true singers, but that maniac Frank Farian would never allow us to express ourselves." The following week, the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences revoked Millie Vanilli's 1990 Grammy. The duo said that they'd actually planned to come clean and return the Grammy themselves in hopes it would be given to the actual singers on the album. In that same conference, Millie Vanilli tried to prove to the journalists in the room that they actually could sing and rap, despite being forced to pass off other artists' vocals as their own. Though Grammy revocation is rare, it was done to set the precedent that artists would not be rewarded for using others' vocals and being dishonest about it. Despite the lawsuits and controversy, Millie Vanilli maintains that they were manipulated and lied to by Farian. The duo had only been in their early 20s when their careers began, and had had little industry experience. In recent times, many have come to question whether it was truly fair for Millie Vanilli to have had their Grammy revoked. Though it's understood that they didn't sing on the album that earned them their Grammy, it was acknowledged that their looks, stage presence, and dancing contributed to Millie Vanilli's popularity. Many also felt that the duo had unfairly been manipulated by their producers and management and didn't deserve to have the award taken away. Though I see both sides, I agree that their Grammy should have been taken away. I don't think it's fair to win a Grammy for an album that you didn't sing. The problem was never just that instance of lip syncing, but that they were never the ones singing on the records. You could argue that the Grammy they won was for Best New Artist and not for the album itself, but part of Millie Vanilli's image as artists included vocals that weren't even theirs. But at the same time, I do in some ways feel like the backlash that they faced was too severe. Of course, there was no way that this wasn't going to be a scandal. However, I think that people wrongly treated Millie Vanilli as the only culprits in the situation, when in fact they were in their 20s and didn't have full agency in their careers. I feel like they deserved to lose their Grammy, but didn't deserve to be basically thrown under the bus and blackballed. Also, this was the 1990s, so of course tabloids, late night shows, and news outlets were incredibly vicious. Millie Vanilli attempted to regain their success and release albums with their own vocals. Despite the first album's poor performance, they planned a second one. However, in 1998, member Rob Pilatus passed away at the age of 32 due to an accidental overdose. In the years following the scandal and their Grammy revocation, his life had taken a downward spiral and he found himself involved in drugs and crime. His death sadly came just before Millie Vanilli were set to embark on an album tour. Fab Morvan has continued to make music and has taken part in several documentaries and interviews regarding the lip-syncing scandal. He's released his own albums and has even collaborated with some of the original Millie Vanilli singers on Girl You Know It's True. Another artist widely criticized for stealing and lip-syncing to artists' vocals is Jennifer Lopez. Out of fairness, I'm not going to bring up instances where just the background vocals from the demo made it into JLo's version. That's something that other artists have done, yet they don't get the same amount of criticism for. However, I do want to talk about examples of JLo blatantly passing off lead vocals that she didn't sing as her own, both live and in the studio. One of JLo's most popular songs is I'm Real, more so the remix featuring Ja Rule. The song was released in 2001 and went number 1. Yet, the song was considered a number 1 for JLo rather than Ashanti, who actually sang the song's chorus. She'd recorded a demo of the song, and JLo had never bothered re-recording the vocals before releasing it. She was actually criticized for saying the N-word in the song, and those who came to JLo's defense said that she'd done nothing wrong because she wasn't actually singing. Ashanti was credited as a background vocalist, but received no credit for singing the chorus. Imagine stealing vocals on a song called I'm Real. The jokes write themselves. JLo did the same thing with her song Play. The 2001 song was written by Christina Milian, and Milian sang the demo. Though Christina's credited with background vocals on the track, she also sings the entire chorus while JLo mouths it. In her self-titled anthem Jenny from the Block, Lopez does very little of the singing. The bridge and chorus are sang by Natasha Ramos. Ramos recorded the demo, and her vocals were never removed from the studio version. Since her singing voice is so similar to JLo's, a lot of people didn't notice this until Natasha's demo leaked. So basically what that means is, it's not even Jenny from the Block singing the part of the song that literally says, I'm still Jenny from the Block. In 2005, it was Brandy's turn to have her vocals recycled on one of JLo's songs. She co-wrote and recorded a demo for Ride or Die. When it didn't make it onto 2 of Brandy's albums, the song was then passed to JLo. You can so obviously hear Brandy's vocals on the studio version, it's almost a joke. Other songs where JLo passed off vocals as her own include If You Had My Love and All I Have. Not only did JLo use these artists' vocals on her studio versions of her songs, she also used them live when she lip-synced in her performances. Despite multiple accusations and evidence of this, when it comes to speaking on the issue, JLo either stays silent or deflects. About this, Ashanti has recently said, "You should always care about credit for what you do regardless of what industry you're in. It's really important to give credit. It's weird because you obviously get frustrated for not getting credit or not being properly labeled, but then that turns into something that you get admired for." The Queen of Shade, Mariah Carey, has also taken shots at JLo saying, "If I had the luxury of not singing my songs, I'd do that too," when she was informed that JLo was getting 8 hours of sleep a night. I know that Mariah has some questionable lip-syncing performances, but she does get brownie points for having at least at one point been able to sing her songs live. I know someone's going to comment and say that I'm being mean to JLo while I was being sympathetic to Millie Vanilli. I've clearly said that I disagree with the actions in both cases, but I also disagree with the vicious treatment and borderline harassment Millie Vanilli received after their scandal and the fact that it basically ended their career. Yet and still, this has been a known fact about JLo for years, and she's never seen a fraction of that backlash, and none of the criticism she has received has substantially affected her career. Ghost singing, as it's often called, is when an artist takes credit for someone else's vocals, has a more sinister history in the music industry. In the earlier part of the 20th century, black artists often recorded music that was later taken and credited to white artists as their image was seen as more palatable and acceptable to most Americans. Muriel Smith was an opera singer and theater actress in the 1940s and 50s. Her vocals were often used in Hollywood musicals, but because of her race, she was rarely credited. Smith was best known for her role in the original Moulin Rouge film, in which she both acted and lent vocals to another actress in the film. Decades after its release, Smith's song Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me was covered by Gloria Estefan. Despite this, Smith is still relatively unknown and unrecognized for her work. Ghost singing was especially common in Hollywood films of the 1950s and 60s. Film studios often wanted to cast their more prominent actresses in their musicals, but their singing wasn't up to par. Examples include Audrey Hepburn in My Fair Lady, as well as both Rita Moreno and Natalie Wood in West Side Story. Rita Moreno's vocals weren't dubbed because she couldn't sing at all, but just because she couldn't sing low enough for the song A Boy Like That. Both Hepburn and Wood were dubbed by Marni Nixon, who lent her vocals to multiple Hollywood actresses at the time, including Marilyn Monroe and some parts of Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. Nixon began her career as a ghost singer in 1949 and was threatened by MGM that if she revealed her identity, she'd never work again. By 1964, she was gaining more recognition for her work, thanks to a New York Times article and actress Deborah Kerr name-dropping her during an Oscar acceptance speech. Because of this, by the time My Fair Lady came out, people were aware of Marni Nixon and the fact that she was singing for Hepburn. Hepburn's dub vocals in My Fair Lady disqualified her from an Oscar nomination for the role. I'm not quite sure how I feel about this, since it's her acting that was up for the award rather than her singing, and it was known that she wasn't singing. And even while lip-syncing, actors still have to emote. Other examples include Christopher Plummer being dubbed by Bill Lee in The Sound of Music, and Debbie Reynolds being dubbed by Betty Noyes in Singing in the Rain. The main reason fans tend to hate lip-syncing is because they feel deceived. It can feel like the artist is lying about their talent, or at the very least lying about how they sound in that moment. Many who watch artists live want to feel like they're getting an authentic performance. When artists lip-sync, they tend to feel cheated. I think the exception is when an artist makes it obvious that they're lip-syncing, like Madonna in her Vogue performance at the VMAs, or Nicki Minaj, who I mentioned earlier. In both cases, the artist is making no attempt to make us believe that they're singing live, so we don't feel lied to, and can focus on other parts of the performance. Even when the artist is singing live, they're not hiding the fact that there are backing vocals present in the performance. Judging by some artists' reactions when they get caught lip-syncing, there is some element of shame and frustration there that I'm sure wouldn't exist if they'd made it clear from the start that they weren't singing live. While I agree that an artist shouldn't lie about lip-syncing, I hope it's clear that it's a more nuanced than saying all artists who lip-sync are liars who can't sing. No, I don't think artists should be claiming to sing live when they aren't, and they definitely shouldn't be taking credit for vocals that aren't their own. But even if an artist is caught lip-syncing, I still don't think that it should be a career-ending offense. It seems like recently, many have proposed the idea that the middle ground is that artists are required to disclose when they aren't singing live. While I agree to some extent, I feel like there's a lot of gray area. Even when artists do sing live, a lot of their mics have auto-tune or their raw vocals are otherwise altered in what's still technically a live performance. So it makes me wonder if artists would have to disclose that too, which almost every artist does at this point. I also wonder if there would be some sort of fine or penalty if an artist is lying about singing live. So I did look into this, and apparently there's legal precedence for artists having to disclose lip-syncing. New Hampshire established a lip-syncing disclosure law in 1993 as a direct result of the Millie Vanilli controversy. Promoters would be required to disclose to audiences when an artist would be lip-syncing, even to pre-recorded vocals. Other states like Illinois, Massachusetts, and California have all proposed similar bills. The proposed penalties for performance violating the lip-sync law range from a $50,000 fine to felony charges. I find both of those to be pretty excessive, honestly. Yes, I agree it's not right for artists to lie about lip-syncing, but I don't really think it should result in legal action, even if it's not against the artist directly. Critics of the bills have too pointed out that microphones and soundboards can alter live vocals. In addition, even without blanket laws requiring artists to disclose lip-syncing, consumers have a right to file a lawsuit if they feel the artist has somehow hurt them. In fact, Millie Vanilli was hit with several class action lawsuits after their controversy without any such lip-syncing laws existing. In 2009, Australians were upset after Britney Spears lip-synced her concert. One of Britney's spokespeople stated that fans should have been aware Britney was going to lip-sync, as she'd clearly been lip-syncing in recent performances posted online. Back in the States, it was suggested that performers begin disclosing on promo material and concert tickets whether artists would sing live. In Virginia, it was proposed that promoters' failure to disclose this should result in breach of the Fair Trading Act. Honestly, this I don't have an issue with. Like, it should be disclosed, but I'm not sure if a felony charge is necessary if it isn't. But by this logic, I think it would also be necessary to distinguish whether an artist is using any voice-altering technology or any pitch correction while performing. But like I said, these days that's almost always, so I'm not sure how realistic it is to expect to see that happen. Of course, the thought process behind these bills is obviously maintaining transparency between the artist and the consumer. This is similar to requirements for influencers and celebrities to disclose paid promotions, as well as proposals for them to begin disclosing cosmetic procedures that they've had done. Personally, I can almost always still enjoy a performance when the artist lip-syncs to a pre-recording. I think it's because it still sounds more or less live. Yes, the vocals are often cleaned up, but not to the degree that they are in a song's studio version. I also hate when artists keep lip-syncing to the studio version of a song when their voice no longer sounds the way that it did back then. It just takes me out of the performance and it feels like a tribute artist or something. It's always best when the vocals that are being lip-synced to are relatively current because it makes the performance more believable. But of course, I do acknowledge that this means that the artist has to have some vocal talent to even pull this off. I think my opinion relates back to what I said a couple videos ago about the fact that I enjoy most of my favorite artists as entertainers more than vocalists. Multiple entertainers aren't the strongest vocalists and can't deliver consistent vocal performances, and I'm sure that they know this. However, most of the time, they can put on a good show pretty consistently and don't want bad vocals to ruin this. It's a lot easier in those cases to pre-record their vocals and just use the best take. I'd much rather see this than an entertainer singing live and it sucks. I also just feel like there's two different camps of people, one who prefers live versions of music and others who prefer studio versions. Generally, I do prefer studio versions of songs to live versions, which probably explains why I'm personally not as bothered by lip syncing. I honestly just like the polished, perfected sound of a studio version or pre-recorded vocals over completely raw ones. That's just my personal preference though, and I do love a good live lounge performance. Like I said, for me, there's a lot of gray area. I don't think lip syncing should be a crime, but I do think it's wrong to lie. But as I also said, I'd most of the time rather see a decent lip sync performance than a terrible live one. Personally, I don't think lip syncing is going anywhere. The more people become self-made artists, many of which lack the vocal training that was common in generations before, I think the more we'll keep seeing lip syncing. Honestly, when I think of our generation's most popular singers, I'd say very few of them stand out for their genuine vocal talent, and even fewer can hold a candle to vocalists of previous generations. I think with all this talk about people being honest with their fan in all areas of the entertainment industry, it will be interesting to see where this conversation goes. But I guess only time will tell. Thank you for bearing with me for this super long video. I'm sorry that my voice was going out towards the end of it. But as always, if you like this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you'd like to see from me next. And I'll see you guys very soon. I love you guys. Bye-bye.